breaking news today.
Please subscribe and then check notification box to get all breaking news alerts.
Look who was just classified as a domestic terrorist group officially by the FBI and DHS, racists ready to riot. It has now been made public that federal authorities have been sounding the alarm to state and local officials since early 2016 that the leftist extremist troublemaking group known as Antifa had become increasingly confrontational, dangerous and volatile. The Department of Homeland Security formally classified their activities as domestic terrorist violence, according to interviews and confidential law enforcement documents obtained by the news outlet Politico earlier this week. Well before the August 12 rally in Charlottesville, Virginia turned deadly because far left-wing terrorists decided to protest other people's rights to free speech and expression, Homeland Security had been issuing warnings about the growing likelihood of lethal violence between the left-wing anarchists and right-wing white supremacist and nationalist groups. Last week even the goofy Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi had some choice words for Antifa and their supporters. New York Daily News reports how the left props up Antifa, and why Nancy Pelosi was right to condemn the violent radicals. Now, who will follow? Our democracy has no room for inciting violence or endangering the public, no matter the ideology of those who commit such acts, read a statement released by House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi on Tuesday. Such an unequivocal condemnation of what the Washington Post described as an attack by black-clad Antifa members on peaceful right-wing demonstrators in Berkeley last weekend probably wasn't high on the Democratic leader's agenda. Common decency and civil propriety demanded it, but so, too, did elementary political competence. Much has been said about a surge of racially charged right-wing violence concomitant with Donald Trump's rising political fortunes, but the reciprocal brutality on the left and its origins have largely evaded that kind of scrutiny. Bubbling beneath the surface is an ethos that not only celebrates political violence but encourages it. In 2016, the appropriately extensive coverage of the future president promising material rewards to rally-goers who committed violence in his name left little time to devote to the brewing counteraction. In March of last year, a gang of student protesters descended on a pro-Trump rally in Chicago and infiltrated the event, where they engaged in physical confrontations with Trump supporters and police. 2 Chicago police officers were injured, one was hit over the head with a bottle. These scenes were repeated in places like Costa Mesa and San Jose, California. Violence against supporters of any candidate has no place in this election, said Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta, as the images of Trump supporters bloodied by protesters threatened to tarnish his candidate. By June of 2016, these spasms of violence began to develop a more organized character. For weeks, a group of white supremacists had publicized their intention to protest lawfully on the steps of California's state capitol building in Sacramento. For as many weeks, the organization by any means necessary had been organizing to disrupt that event. When these 2 armed assemblages met face to face, the confrontation that ensued was a bloody one. 10 were injured, some critically. Authorities alleged that this primordial form of Antifa had prepared for weeks to engage in violence with their proto-fascist counterparts. 1 year later, counter-demonstration organizer Yvette Furka was arrested and charged with assault and inciting a riot. Her mission was, however, already accomplished. The Nazis did not recruit anyone new today, Furka told a friendly interviewer in the wake of this street fight. Our side did. She was right. Amid these episodes, a subculture on the left that sees itself as the last line of defense against the forces of racism and tyranny took root. Even the word resistance conjures up images of beret-clad partisans organizing behind Nazi lines, sabotaging railways and neutralizing collaborators. It is a fantasy that has attracted a number of adherents on the left, and they're quite serious in their support for preemptive violence. Liberals cling to institutions, scoffed The Nation's Natasha Leonard in a January 19 article previewing the future street battles between anti- and pro-Trump forces. Meanwhile, it is the radical left, so often tarred as irrational, who are calling upon both U.S. and European histories of anti-fascist action to offer practical and serious responses in this political moment. Amid a gauzy stroll through a romanticized ideal of the 20th century's violent Bolshevist movements, she then defined any and all force deployed against those who Antifa determines to be fascists acts of self-defense and, therefore, virtuous. The following day, as Trump was taking the oath of office, chaos erupted on the streets of Washington, D.C. as mobs of anti-fascist demonstrators attacked police and destroyed property. Police responded with crowd dispersal ordinance, at least 2 police were injured in the melee, and 217 demonstrators were arrested. While speaking to a reporter, the white supremacist organizer Richard Spencer was sucker-punched in the side of his head. The video went viral and prompted outlets like Vice News and The Guardian to ponder the ethicality of assault as though it were a matter lofty philosophical weight. Just a few days later, millions took to the streets in a much more peaceful and empathetic display of opposition to Trump dubbed the Women's March. It was this specific character that so irritated the left's violence enthusiasts. White women's safety has long been used as an excuse and a vehicle for oppression, wrote the New Republic's Jess Zimmerman. Indeed, our safety is fetishized to the point that we are often protected against our will. Her disdain for the Women's March is rooted not in its politics but its tactics and the skin color of its participants. If the police stay their hand with you, white women, it is not a compliment, she concluded. It is condescension. A new wave of left-wing militants is ready to rumble in Portland, and beyond. Read the headline on a glowing June profile of a variety of anti-fascist groups in the left-wing magazine Mother Jones. Pro-Trump events, the profile observed, have a habit of attracting racists and neo-Nazis and, therefore, they are predictably opposed by Antifa activists often physically.